Hello there. Welcome back to Marvel Movie Mania, the show where we discuss Marvel movies, both old and new. And today is going to be a pretty special episode. We're going to be taking a look at a classic Marvel movie. It's not an MCU movie. This is way before then, way before then. And it's pretty much one of the founding Marvel blockbuster experiences that it was really one of the ones that kicked off the superhero movie craze that we're all in today. And to start things off, we're going to be taking a look at Bryan Singer's X-Men from 2000. Yeah, we're going back, boys and girls. This is a 20-year-old movie, 21-year-old movie at this point, and it still holds up. It still is exciting. I guess by this point, there was a lot of Marvel movies that really didn't get off the ground. By this point, Marvel Studio, not that Marvel Studios, but just like the Marvel themselves were trying to find characters that really were popular, and they were trying to get movies made of them. So, like the Fantastic Four movie that was never released, the 90s one that everyone talks about is so bad. That one actually never got released, and they actually made that just to keep the rights to it, which is pretty stupid. Howard the Duck is another famously bad Marvel movie. It's so bad that I haven't even watched it. I've seen some scenes and it's just really cringe-inducing. That was another failure that they tried to get off the ground. Some more examples are Captain America from like the 70s, I believe. They had like this TV serial movie which was really bad, and then I think they had a sequel to that which is even worse. And then they have the Japanese Spider-Man from like the 80s, which is really bad, like a manga version of Spider-Man. This is like, of course, way before Maguire donned the suit, but it was just bad. There's a lot of examples of really bad superhero movies before these that just didn't work. They didn't click with anyone, and that's why they all failed. However, the X-Men was a property that was kind of being considered for a movie kind of type, a big screen blockbuster. And they actually managed to get it off the ground finally. It was in kind of development phase for I believe a few years, and finally Bryan Singer was brought on board, and he was actually a fan of the X-Men characters, and he said, well, he actually wasn't going to do it at first, but then he found out that it was going to be this really big production with like big special effects, great actors, big set pieces, a good story, and so he signed on. He became the director, and well, now we have X-Men to thank for being really the big pioneer in superhero blockbusters. I mean, Blade from 1998 technically was the one that really it was really the big first blockbuster for Marvel before the MCU, but I'm not going to cover Blade until later because I haven't actually seen it yet as of this point, but I'll share my thoughts once I see it. But anyway, Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man from 2002, so that would come 2 years later. Those three would be the three films that would kick the Marvel superhero craze of moviegoers into high gear. That's why we have Marvel movies today, because of these three. So Blade did it first, then X-Men, then Spider-Man really kicked it into high gear, and that's why we have the Avengers. That's why we got Captain America: Civil War. That's why we've got Thor: Ragnarok, Spider-Man: Homecoming. A lot of these films, a lot of these MCU films, like Guardians of the Galaxy as well. So just a lot of these big movies wouldn't really exist without X-Men. And so it's pretty cool to see that this history of Marvel movies really started with this in Blade, which is pretty cool. This movie runs about an hour and a half, so it's not too long. It's kind of dark. It's got some dark elements, particularly the beginning, where it's in, Germany. You probably know the beginning of this film, where it tells Magneto's kind of backstory, like Eric Lenscher. And I don't think I really need to explain the X-Men characters to you. I mean, if you've heard of at least one of them, you've probably heard of Wolverine, or Cyclops, or Storm, or Jean Grey, Beast, Nightcrawler, Rogue, uh, Xavier. So I don't really need to explain them to you, but you can do more. You can do some research into the specific X-Men that are in this film. There's pretty much all the main players. Beast doesn't show up until later. Same with Nightcrawler. Rogue is here. We've got Jean. We've got Cyclops. We've got Wolverine. We've got Storm. Um, we've also got Iceman as in a cameo, which is pretty cool. Xavier, of course, is the main. Pretty much one of the main supporting casts. He's played by Patrick Stewart, which is one of the most perfect casting choices ever made. Same with Magneto, Eric Lenscher. He's played by Sir Ian McKellen, which is just brilliant. It's awesome. He does a wonderful job. We got a few supporting villains here. We've got Toad, who's played by Ray Park. We've got Sabretooth, who's played by Tyler Mane. Mystique, who is played by Rebecca Romaine Stamos. Pretty cool. They're mainly the villains, although there's only 4 of them, but they're pretty good. I feel like Toad and Sabretooth could get a lot more. They could get a little bit more screen time, but they're pretty cool villains. You get to see them throughout the film. Sabretooth doesn't return until later. I believe Toad. This is Toad's pretty much his first appearance. He also appears later. Magneto, of course, appears in the other films as well. He's basically the main villain. He doesn't. Basically, Magneto's deal in this film is that he doesn't want mutants and humans to kind of coexist, to live together, because he feels like mutants are the superior race. And so Professor X, Xavier, the leader of the X-Men, he's played by Patrick Stewart. He leads everyone, the good mutants, like they're gonna be known as the X-Men, and they train in a place called the X Mansion, which is where it's like a school for people who have mutant abilities. And so Wolverine finds himself there. He finds himself becoming a hero reluctantly, and he stops Magneto. At least they try to stop him. And it's a pretty cool movie. It really, the action is really well done. I'll give a couple examples where Wolverine and Rogue are in the truck, and they're driving on the road in the snowy wind and in a snowstorm, and they get ambushed by Sabretooth, who is one of Magneto's Brotherhood, and there's a big fight scene, and the Cyclops and Storm have to come rescue them, which is a really, really, really well done action scene. Another really well done one is the fight between Mystique and Wolverine when they're in the the Statue of Liberty. That is really well done. Like really, really, really excellent fight scene there. Choreography is awesome. It's just great. All the characters pretty much get a moment to shine. Not all of them get like developed. It's more, it's really focused on Logan's story. He's Wolverine. We're focusing on his past a little bit and where he's going. But we also get Rogue and Magneto and Professor X's. They're kind of like the 4 main, characters in this film. We get plenty of supporting characters as well, which is pretty cool. They don't all get like development in this film. It's mainly saved for X2, which is the sequel, which is fine. I think they should focus on the main characters here, and we get to hear a lot about Magneto's backstory, where he comes from, why he's the way he is, why he's almost like a terrorist, if you will. We get a lot of him and Xavier's backstory, kind of their history together as friends and acquaintances, and it's pretty nice. All the performances are really well done. Halle Berry's Storm is really awesome to see. She doesn't get a lot to do, particularly in this film. Again, it's saved for X2, but I mean, it's pretty good introduction to all the characters. Famke Jensen plays Jean Grey, which is really nice, and James Marsden, of course, plays Cyclops, which is really cool. I really like his performance. I think it's really well done, despite him not getting a lot of screen time. All these characters, it's kind of hard to balance the X-Men in one movie because they're all like this really big ensemble team of characters. And you can tell they struggle a little bit with the the different character, like balancing the different character moments, because there's so many X-Men, there's so many characters, but since they have more movies, they can actually do more with the characters later on. So this is kind of just like a setup movie for X2 and X3 and just like the other ones in the series. So it's a really great first entry. They really knocked it out of the park. Bryan Singer did an excellent job in getting these characters and grounding them to a more realistic tone and realistic setting, but making it feel like it's a comic book. Like this X-Men film, the first one especially, feels much more like a comic book, like more like a realistic, grounded comic book, rather than you know the early films like Howard the Duck don't really land. This one really lands. It feels real. It feels fun, and it's adult. There are some adult parts, but like it's not nothing too bad. There are a bit of swearing, which they actually toned down the swearing from here on. So this is like the worst it gets for these X-Men films. I think Fox did a great job in adapting the X-Men characters into this more reality kind of world of this version of the X-Men. I think it's pretty good. It's really phenomenal. This first film, it's almost so good that it's kind of hard for the sequels to kind of catch up and be as good or better. I'd say X2 is really the one that outdoes this movie. But I mean, for a first outing, it's pretty excellent. It's pretty excellent, if you know what I mean. It's really great. Uh, I guess the only bad things I would have to say is that the CGI, all these years later, it kind of looks a little bit dated at times. You'll probably know which scenes I'm talking about, but like the CGI in some scenes looks a little fake. I feel like Spider-Man did it a little bit better, and that just came out 2 years after. But for an early 2000s film, this is really a really awesome movie, and it's really takes its time to get to introduce us to these characters. It's fun, it's thrilling, it's exciting. It's still iconic all these years later, and it is 21 years old, which is pretty surprising. And it's kind of like the benchmark for comic book movies in general. It kind of makes the other ones look lame by comparison. So like Spider-Man, X-Men, this one, maybe Fantastic Four and Blade. Really, these are like the benchmarks, like the high marks of superhero movies. This is one of the first movies to really take it seriously. To like say, yeah, you can actually bring comic book characters into the big screen and it won't look like a joke. So that's the big reason why this movie works. It works because it's smart, it's clever, it takes its time, but yet the action is great. There's a lot of character moments, and it's serious, and yet it's poking fun at itself at some point. So, X-Men from the year 2000. What do you guys think about it? Have you seen it before? Have you not? What do you think about this film? Do you think it still holds up today, or do you think it's kind of a joke compared to the, Marvel Cinematic Universe? So, what do you think about it? Have you seen it? What did you think about this look back? The next episode will most likely be on X2, X-Men United, or we're going to be doing Spider-Man, that one of the two. I'm not going to go chronologically, but we're going to eventually do all of the non-MCU films leading up to the MCU. So it's going to be pretty fun. I hope you enjoyed this look back. I give X-Men a 10 out of 10. It deserves it. It's just amazing. It's phenomenal. It holds up still to this day. It feels current, and it feels like it just came out yesterday. So it's awesome. It really is excellent. But let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for next week's episode where we take a look at X2 or Spider-Man. One of the two will, the one of the two will be on covered. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. And let me know your thoughts about this movie and its impact in the community down below. Thank you so much for checking this out. Again, thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Have a marvelous day. Take care.